What's wrong with the world? What's wrong in the world? How we answer those questions determines much about how we live, how we diagnose issues in our lives, in our church, in our society, determines the solutions we seek and the solutions we find. For religious and civic leaders in Jesus' time, what was wrong in their world was Jesus. When Jesus finally arrived in Jerusalem in Luke chapter 19, he entered the city as a king and went directly to the temple and caused a commotion, driving out those who were selling things there. Every day he was teaching in the temple, Luke reports. The chief priests, the scribes, and the leaders of the people kept looking for a way to kill him, but they did not find anything they could do, for all the people were spellbound by what they heard. For the civic and religious leaders, Jesus was the problem, and so while they continued to work at finding a way to kill him, they sought also to discredit him. First, they challenged his authority directly. By what authority are you doing these things? They demanded. When that didn't work, they sent a spy to lure him into uttering treason, asking him, "Is it lawful for us to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" Finally, as we hear today, they try a religious question, presenting a slightly ridiculous, kind of hyperbolic case study designed to trouble the belief in resurrection, which they did not hold. For some Christians of the Trumpian variety in our time, what is wrong with our world is that contemporary culture violates a God-ordained social structure. They are deeply committed to a pyramid-shaped society, wrote speaker, teacher, and historian Diana Butler Bass recently in an article on the nature of prophecy and politics. She describes this structure of reality as a pyramid-shaped society that is, quote, designed by God based on divine hierarchies and roles. That order is believed to have been ordained at creation. Men over women, light-skinned races over dark, true religion over false, deserved wealth and status over that which is undeserved. The article profiles an up-and-coming Trumpian prophet named Julie Green, about whom Bass writes, "My quarrel isn't that she claims God's authority. It isn't that she practices prophecy in the political arena. My quarrel is that she and her followers have misdiagnosed injustice and misunderstood the nature of God's desire for the future." In other words, she and Green think very differently about what is wrong with the world. It's just the kind of disagreement that all too easily escalates into dehumanizing language and actions on both sides, and then to violent conflict and all-out war. Here in Canada, we're in the midst of an inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act during the trucker convoy protests and occupations last winter. We're hearing there are very different views on what happened, different views about what freedom means and for whom, different views about what is wrong with our country, with our society, with our world. Tensions between Ukraine and Russia have been bubbling for years, almost a decade, before Russia invaded Ukraine last February. With that act, the possibility of another all-out world war broke upon our consciences. It's not, of course, the only ongoing war in our world. The number of armed conflicts around the world are numbered as high as 127, spread across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. There's been concern recently about potential violence in both Brazil and the USA to do with the fall elections and the very divergent structures of reality that various candidates offer to the populace. There is no shortage of conflict about what is wrong with the world, and therefore, what the solutions might be. The pyramid is the problem, Diana Butler Bass wrote in that article, and it can never be fixed. It can never be just. Thankfully, she goes on, the pyramid isn't the only structure through which we might imagine reality. The alternative structure to the pyramid is that of the table. In biblical faith, God sets a table in the wilderness. God provides a table of provision and welcomes all to a table of hospitality. The table is a gathering of all who seek a place, a peaceable life, and sustenance in gratitude, humility, and mutual service. It establishes dignity and equality. Butler Bass's diagnosis of what is wrong is directly contrary to that of other Christians. Her vision of reality, her desired structure for the world, is more of a circle than a pyramid. It's a table overflowing with the abundance of life for all, a flourishing of all creation, plants and animals, water and air, people of all shapes, sizes, colors, sexualities, genders, abilities. When confronted with an alternative version of reality, a problem shaped by the structures and beliefs of his society, Jesus also responded by questioning the structure itself, the structure that the leaders knew, the way things were. Those who belong to this age marry and are given in marriage, Jesus says. But those who are considered worthy of a place in that age and in the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. The rules, if you will, of resurrection are different from the rules of the world as the Sadducees knew it. Now, we have no connection to this very strange ancient practice of levirate marriage upon which today's story is based. But I wonder what aspects of the world as we know it don't belong in God's dream for our future. I wonder what rules in our society don't apply in resurrection life. Our culture of shame, perhaps, that drives us to work harder and harder and harder just to be good enough and never succeeding. Maybe the problem is the consumerism as a way of life, as though we can buy happiness. Possibly it's the lie that relationships, including our relationship with God, is transactional, rather than being grounded in love, grace, and mercy. Maybe it's that violence, as opposed to sacrificial love, that will solve the world's wrongs. Today, we remember and honor the many military personnel whose lives ended too soon, along with those who live with the mental, emotional, and physical consequences of war. We do so while also holding this paradox of knowing that the structures themselves are not okay, that the toll of armed conflict is far too high for far too many people. Jesus conflicted with the powers that be with intelligence, resolve, dexterity, and grace as he sought to overturn the structures of domination in his world. As Jesus' disciples, we too strive to follow in the way of peace, standing up for justice through sacrificial love in the way of the God of life.